The link sat in his inbox like a quiet dare, unassuming, almost forgettable among the noise of bills, promotions and automated greetings. There was no subject line, no sender name he recognized, just the cold string of characters and a timestamp from exactly 3:17 a.m. He noticed it because he hadn't slept. Sleep had become something distant to him, like a childhood friend whose face he could almost recall but not quite. Nights stretched long and hollow, filled with the hum of the ceiling fan and the relentless echo of thoughts he didn't want to think. Regret had a way of growing louder in silence. He stared at the link again, thumb hovering over it. It was irrational, he knew, to feel something tugging at him because of a random message. Yet something about it felt deliberate, as if it had been waiting for him rather than the other way around. He tapped it. The video opened slowly, buffering against the weak connection. The screen remained black for a moment, long enough for him to consider closing it. Then a faint image appeared, shaky, handheld. A room, familiar in a way, that made his chest tighten before his mind could catch up. A voice came next, soft, laughing. His breath stopped. It was her. "Arif, stop recording," she said, her voice half amused, half embarrassed. "You always do this when I look terrible." "I'm recording because you look perfect," his own voice replied. Younger, lighter, carrying a warmth he barely recognized as his own anymore. His fingers tightened around the phone. This wasn't possible. The room in the video was their old apartment. The narrow window with the broken latch, the faded blue curtains she had insisted on keeping because they reminded her of the ocean she had never seen. The chipped mug on the table, the one she used every morning. The video moved as his younger self stepped closer to her. She was sitting cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by scattered papers, her hair tied up messily, strands falling loose around her face. "You said we'd clean today," she teased. "We will," he said in the video, laughing. "I'm just documenting history." "History of what?" "Of us," he replied. "So, when we're old and boring, we can remember we used to be interesting." She rolled her eyes, but smiled in a way that made something inside him ache. He remembered this day, or rather, he remembered the feeling of it light, easy, safe. It was before everything had begun to unravel, before the silence had crept in between them, like a slow poison. He swallowed hard, watching as the video continued. "You always think about the future," she said, softer now. "What if it doesn't turn out how you expect?" "Then we'll deal with it," he answered without hesitation. "Together." The word lingered in the air like a promise neither of them knew they wouldn't keep. The video flickered, then cut to another scene. It was darker this time. Night, rain tapping against the window. The camera wasn't steady anymore. It felt tense, urgent. "You don't listen to me anymore," her voice said, strained. "I'm trying to fix things," he replied, frustration leaking through. "That's what I'm doing all of this for." "And what about us?" she asked. There was a pause. He remembered this pause. It had stretched between them like a chasm. "This is for us," he insisted. "No," she said quietly. "It used to be. Now it's just for you." He felt his throat tighten. He wanted to stop the video. He didn't need to see this again. He had lived it once. That had been enough. But his finger wouldn't move. "You think I don't care?" He snapped in the recording. "I think you've forgotten how to," she replied, her voice trembling despite her attempt to stay composed. Rain grew louder, or maybe it was just the sound, filling the silence they couldn't bridge. "You're not even here anymore," she whispered. "Even when you're standing right in front of me." The video cut abruptly. The screen went black again, reflecting his own face back at him, older, tired, hollow. He exhaled slowly, realizing he had been holding his breath. There was a part of him that wanted to close it now, to leave it where it was. But another part, quieter yet stronger, urged him to keep going. The video resumed. A hospital room. The sight hit him like a blow to the chest. She lay on the bed, pale, fragile in a way he had never allowed himself to fully acknowledge back then. Machines hummed softly around her, indifferent to the gravity of the moment. He saw himself sitting beside her, hunched forward, his hands clasped tightly together as if he could hold something from slipping away. "You should be home," she said weakly. "I am home," he replied. She smiled faintly, though sadness lingered in her eyes. "You always say the right things," she murmured. "I mean them." "I know," she said. "That's what makes it harder." He leaned closer in the video, his voice breaking. "Don't talk like that." She studied him for a long moment, as if trying to memorize something. "Do you remember that day you recorded me on the floor?" she asked. He nodded. "You said we'd watch it when we're old," she continued. "We still will," he said quickly, almost desperately. Her smile deepened, but there was a quiet acceptance in it that terrified him. "I think this counts as old," she whispered. His chest tightened painfully as he watched his past self shake his head. "No," he said firmly. "We have time." She didn't argue. She just looked at him with a kind of tenderness that only comes when someone has already made peace with something the other person refuses to face. The video flickered again, then cut. The next scene was different. It was just him, sitting alone in that same apartment, now empty. The blue curtains were gone. The mug wasn't on the table. Everything that had once made the place feel alive had been stripped away, leaving only walls that echoed with absence. He was staring at the camera, eyes red, face drawn. "If you rewatching this," he began, his voice uneven, "it means I finally opened it." The present Arif frowned slightly, confusion mixing with the heaviness already in his chest. This part, he didn't remember recording this. "I didn't send this video right away." The version of him on screen continued. "I couldn't. I thought if I just ignored everything, if I buried it deep enough, I could move on." He let out a bitter laugh. "That's not how it works." The man in the video looked directly into the camera, and for a moment it felt like he was looking straight through time. "She told me something on her last day," he said softly. "Something I didn't understand then." The room felt smaller, quieter, as if the world itself was holding its breath. "She said love doesn't disappear when people do. It just waits to be felt again." His voice cracked slightly. "I thought that meant I would always carry her with me. And I do, but that's not all she meant." He paused, wiping his face roughly. "She meant that I shouldn't stop living. That I shouldn't close myself off because I'm afraid of losing someone again." The present Arif felt something shift inside him, something fragile yet undeniable. "I've spent so long punishing myself," the video continued, "for not being enough, for not being present, for thinking there would always be more time." Silence filled the space between his words. "But there isn't always more time," he whispered. "There's just now." He leaned closer to the camera. "If you're watching this, it means you're still stuck," he said. "Still afraid. Still holding on to the past like it's the only thing that matters." A faint, sad smile touched his lips. "It's not." The words settled heavily in the air. "She loved you," he said. "Not the version of you who got everything right. Not the version who never made mistakes. She loved you as you were." His eyes softened. "And if she were here, she wouldn't want this for you. She wouldn't want you to be alone like this." The video wavered slightly, as if the person holding the camera had shifted. "Let yourself feel again," he said. "Let yourself live again. That's how you honor what you had." The screen faded to black. The room around him felt impossibly still. Arif sat there, phone still in his hand, the echo of those words lingering in his mind. For a long time he didn't move. The past had always felt like something solid, something fixed, a weight he carried because he believed he deserved it, because letting go felt like betrayal. But now something about it felt different. Not lighter, not gone, just open. He looked around his small, dimly lit apartment. It wasn't the same one from the video, but it carried the same emptiness, the same quiet that had once been comforting but had long since turned suffocating. He thought about her laughter, the way she had filled spaces without trying, the way she had believed in a future he had taken for granted. His chest tightened, but this time, the pain wasn't sharp or crushing. It was warm, alive. He stood slowly, his legs stiff from sitting too long. The night outside was still dark, but there was a faint hint of dawn beginning to creep in at the edges of the sky. He walked to the window and pushed it open, letting the cool air rush in. For the first time in a long while, he didn't feel like he was suffocating. He took a deep breath, then another. Somewhere far off, a bird began to sing. It was a small sound, insignificant even, but it was enough. He picked up his phone again, not to replay the video, but to open something new. His fingers hesitated for only a moment before he began to type. Not a message to the past, not a message to someone he had lost, but to someone he hadn't met yet. And as the first light of morning slowly filled the room, Arif realized that for the first time in years, he wasn't just remembering life. He was ready to live it again,